My brother Mike stood up at Sunday dinner, waving a bank receipt like a trophy. "Finally put your money to good use," he announced, grinning at our parents. "Transferred all of it to save my construction company. You can thank me later." The dining room erupted in applause. Mom hugged him, tears in her eyes. Dad clapped him on the shoulder. My sister Amy squealed with excitement. I sat frozen, fork halfway to my mouth. My phone buzzed. I looked down at the screen. Unknown number. Text message. FBI Cybercrime Unit alert. Account accessed. Tracking transfer in progress. Do not respond. Agent will contact. My hand started shaking so badly I had to set down my fork. The clatter against the plate made everyone look at me. Mike was still talking, his voice booming with pride and justified righteousness. I tried to open my mouth, to say something, anything, but my throat had closed up completely. "You know, sis," Mike continued, walking around the table like he was giving a presentation, "I've been watching you hoard that money for 2 years now. 2 whole years while my business was bleeding out. While Jennifer and I were facing foreclosure. While your niece and nephew might have lost their home. I finally found my voice. Mike, you don't understand what you've done. That account isn't what you think it is." He cut me off with a laugh. "Oh, I understand perfectly. I found those statements 3 months ago when I borrowed your laptop, remember? You said yours was acting up, asked me to fix it. Well, I fixed it all right, and I found something very interesting in your saved files." My stomach dropped. 3 months ago. He'd been planning this for 3 months. $3.4 million, Mike said, letting the number hang in the air. Our mother gasped. "Just sitting there. Doing nothing. While your own brother was drowning." I tried again. "Mike, please listen to me. I'm under a federal non-disclosure agreement. I can't explain everything. But that money isn't mine to give or yours to take." "Federal non-disclosure agreement," my father repeated, his voice dripping with skepticism. "That's convenient, Diana. Very convenient excuse." Mom leaned forward, her expression hurt and confused. "Honey, if you had that kind of money, why didn't you help your brother when he asked last year? He only needed $50,000. You said you didn't have it." "Because I didn't have it?" I said desperately. "That money was never mine. It was part of something I can't talk about." "Can't or won't," Amy chimed in from across the table. She'd always been close to Mike, always taken his side in family disputes. "You're living in that tiny apartment in Newark, driving a 10-year-old Honda, but you've got millions stashed away? That's pretty hypocritical, Di." Mike's wife Jennifer spoke up then, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Diana. You saved our family. I know you're upset right now, but when you calm down, you'll see Mike did the right thing. Sometimes family has to make tough decisions for each other." I looked at her tear-streaked face, at their 2 kids coloring quietly at the other end of the table, oblivious to the disaster unfolding around them. How could I explain to any of them what Mike had actually done? "You've always been secretive since you took that computer job," Dad said. His tone was final, dismissive. "Always thought you were better than us with your fancy cybersecurity credentials. Maybe Mike taught you a lesson about what family really means." "Show her the receipt," Jennifer urged. "Show her it's already done." Mike pulled out a printed bank transfer form. "Did it this morning, right when the bank opened. Every penny. Transferred to my business account. Already paid 3 months back rent on my office space. Ordered the construction equipment I've been needing. Paid the contractors I owed. Settled the debts that were killing me." My mind raced. $3.4 million dispersed within hours. Equipment ordered, contractors paid, debts settled. The money was gone, scattered across dozens of transactions. Even if the FBI could freeze Mike's accounts now, the damage was done. "I need to use the bathroom," I managed to say, pushing back from the table. In the bathroom, I locked the door with trembling fingers and pulled out my phone. I scrolled to Agent Matthews, my FBI handler. Pressed call. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. Generic message. "Your call cannot be completed as dialed. Panic rising." I tried the emergency number Agent Matthews had given me 18 months ago when this whole operation started. Disconnected. The automated voice was cold, unhelpful. I sent a text to the unknown number that had alerted me. Need immediate assistance. Brother accessed account. Please respond. Nothing. I stared at myself in the mirror. My face was pale, eyes wide with fear. Outside the bathroom door, I could hear my family laughing, celebrating, making plans for Mike's business expansion, talking about the family vacation they could finally afford now. Amy was suggesting they all go to Disney World together, Mike's treat. When I returned to the dining room, they'd moved on to dessert. Mom had brought out her special apple pie. Everyone was passing around plates, talking over each other with excitement. Mike was showing Dad something on his phone, probably pictures of the equipment he'd ordered. My phone rang. Unknown caller. I answered, stepping away from the table into the kitchen. Hello? Miss Diana Harper? The voice was male, professional, unfamiliar. Yes, that's me. This is Special Agent Carson. We need to talk about the $3.4 million transfer that occurred this morning. I glanced back at the dining room. Mike was demonstrating something with his hands, probably explaining how his new equipment worked. Dad was nodding approvingly. Thank God, I breathed. Agent Matthews wasn't answering. I didn't know who to call. Agent Matthews is no longer on this case, Carson said. I've taken over. But Miss Harper, there's something you need to understand. The account your brother accessed, it wasn't just evidence storage. What do you mean? It was active bait. We've been running a long-term operation to attract a specific cybercrime syndicate. The money was staged to look like you were a high-value target. We've been waiting for them to make contact with you, to try to compromise you. My stomach turned to ice, and Mike accessing it triggered every alarm we have. The syndicate has sophisticated monitoring systems. They track any movement of funds that match their target profiles. Miss Harper, the people this operation was meant to attract, just got pinged that someone accessed an account they've been watching. They think your brother might be one of their operatives making a move, or they think he's a threat to their operation. Either way, they're very interested in Mike now. The call ended. I stood in my parents' kitchen, phone pressed to my ear even though the line was dead, listening to my family in the other room plan their celebration party for next weekend. Mike was saying something about inviting the whole extended family, really doing it right. I looked down at my phone, looked back at Mike laughing with our father, his arm around Jennifer, his kids running up to hug him, and I realized the danger I couldn't yet explain. The danger he'd pulled all of us into. The danger that was probably already watching us. I barely slept that night. By the time Monday morning rolled around, I'd tried Agent Matthews' number 17 more times. I'd researched Special Agent Carson and found nothing, which somehow made it worse. Either he was deep undercover, or he didn't exist in any public database. When I got to my apartment building at 6:30 in the morning, 2 people were waiting in the hallway outside my door, a woman in a dark suit and a man with a badge already visible on his belt. Miss Harper, the woman said. I'm Special Agent Carson. This is Special Agent Rodriguez. We need to talk. I unlocked my door with shaking hands. They followed me inside, and suddenly my small apartment felt even smaller with 3 people standing in the living room. You said you were a man on the phone, I said to Agent Carson. I never said that. You assumed. She sat down on my couch without being invited. Rodriguez remained standing by the door, arms crossed. This wasn't a friendly visit. Miss Harper, Carson began, we need to ask you some questions about the account access that occurred yesterday morning. I already told whoever I talked to on the phone. My brother Mike found the account statements. He accessed it without my knowledge or permission. I was under strict instructions not to tell anyone about the account or the operation. And yet your brother knew exactly where to find it, Carson said. He had your login credentials. He knew the account existed. He transferred the funds efficiently, professionally. You expect us to believe that's coincidence? I sat down heavily in the chair across from her. What are you saying? We're investigating the possibility that you and your brother planned this together, Rodriguez said from the door, that you've both been compromised by the syndicate we're tracking. That's insane, I said. I reported the phishing attempt 18 months ago. I've cooperated with everything. I let you set up that account and stage those transfers. I followed every protocol. Carson leaned forward. Let me tell you what we know, Miss Harper. 18 months ago, you reported a sophisticated phishing attempt at your company. We traced it to an international cybercrime syndicate running a $90 million operation across 14 countries. We asked you to be a cooperating witness. You agreed. We set up the monitored account with staged wire transfers to make you look like a high-value target. The plan was simple. They'd eventually make contact, try to compromise you, and we'd trace them back to their leadership. I know all this, I said. I lived it. We were close, Rodriguez added. 3 weeks away from identifying the syndicate's command structure. 3 weeks from rolling up their entire operation. And then your brother accesses the account. Because he found it by accident, I insisted. He borrowed my laptop. I didn't know he'd go through my files. People don't find $3.4 million by accident, Carson said flatly. We don't believe in coincidences, Miss Harper. We believe in patterns, evidence, and probability. And the probability that your brother randomly stumbled onto a classified federal operation and immediately knew how to access the account is essentially zero. Then what do you think happened? I demanded. Carson and Rodriguez exchanged a look. We think someone inside the syndicate tipped your brother off, Carson said. We think they've been positioning him to make exactly this move. And we think you might have helped them do it. I need to call Mike, I said, standing up. You need to hear this from him. He'll tell you exactly what I told you. By all means, Carson said, gesturing to my phone. I called Mike's cell. It rang 6 times, then went to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. He's probably at work, I said. Try his house, Rodriguez suggested. I called Jennifer. She answered on the 3rd ring, sounding harassed. What, Diana? I need to talk to Mike. Is he there? He's not talking to you right now. He thinks you're going to try to guilt him into giving the money back. Mom called this morning, said you sent some people to their house last night claiming to be FBI agents. Really, Di? That's low even for you. Jennifer, those were real FBI agents. This is serious. Mike is in actual danger. She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Wow. You're really committing to this story, aren't you? I have to go. Kids need breakfast. She hung up. I looked at the agents. My own family thinks I'm making this up. Carson stood. Your employer called us this morning, she said. They wanted to know why FBI agents were asking questions about you and your access to their financial systems. My heart sank. What did you tell them? The truth. That you're part of an ongoing investigation. Rodriguez opened the door. You've been suspended pending the outcome of our inquiry, Miss Harper. Effective immediately. I'm being punished for cooperating with you, I said. For doing the right thing. You're being investigated because your brother just compromised a years-long federal operation and sent $3.4 million in federal funds into accounts we can't immediately control, Carson corrected. Whether you did the right thing is yet to be determined. After they left, I sat in my apartment and cried. Then I called my boss, got voicemail, called my coworker Tracy, who actually answered. Tracy, what's happening at work? Oh my God, Diana. There are FBI agents here questioning everyone about you, about whether you had access to client financial data, whether you ever acted suspiciously. Brad from accounting said you once asked him about wire transfer protocols. They're making it sound like you're some kind of criminal. I'm not, I said weakly. It's complicated, but I'm not. I want to believe you, Tracy said. But they're being really thorough, Di, really serious. I have to go. They're calling me back in. I spent the rest of the morning staring at my phone, waiting for someone to call with good news. Instead, Agent Rodriguez called at 2 in the afternoon. Miss Harper, we've completed initial forensics on your brother's computer and financial records. And? It's worse than we thought. Your brother didn't just transfer the money to his business account. He made multiple transfers to several different accounts. Cryptocurrency purchases, payments to technology vendors, and Miss Harper, the vendors he paid, 2 of them are on our watch list. They're known to supply equipment used in cybercrime operations. Mike wouldn't know that, I protested. He's a contractor. He builds houses. He doesn't know anything about cybercrime. Someone guided him, Rodriguez said. We found communication records on his phone. An encrypted messaging app called Signal X. Someone was talking to him, giving him instructions. Who? We're working on that. But Miss Harper, here's the other problem. Your brother posted about this on social media. Nothing specific, but enough. He put up a status update on his business Facebook page 2 days ago, said something about a major investment coming through soon, asked people to stay tuned for big announcements. Oh no, I whispered. It gets worse. The cryptocurrency wallet your brother transferred $200,000 to? We just traced it. It's connected to the syndicate's financial network. Your brother just sent $200,000 directly to the people we've been investigating for 3 years. There was a long pause. I could hear Rodriguez breathing on the other end of the line. Miss Harper, I need you to look out your window. Don't make it obvious. Just glance outside. I walked to my window, pulled the curtain back slightly. Down on the street, a dark sedan was parked across from my building. A man sat in the driver's seat, holding what looked like a camera with a long lens. You see him? Rodriguez asked. Yes. They're here. The syndicate sent someone to watch you. They tracked the transfer, they saw your brother's social media posts, and now they think Mike has access to $3.4 million that they believe belongs to them. Miss Harper, you need to understand something. You and your family aren't just part of a federal investigation anymore. You're targets of one of the most ruthless cybercrime organizations in the world. I watched the man in the car aim his camera at my building, at my window. What do I do? I asked. Pack a bag, Rodriguez said. We're coming to get you. You're going into protective custody until we sort this out. What about my family? What about Mike and Jennifer and the kids? We'll contact them. But Miss Harper, based on the evidence we're seeing, your brother is looking more and more like a willing participant in this operation. We may not be able to protect him. We may have to arrest him. The FBI safe house was a bland apartment in Trenton, 40 minutes from my parents' house. I spent Tuesday and most of Wednesday there, watching news on my phone and trying unsuccessfully to reach Mike. He'd blocked my number. On Wednesday afternoon, Agent Carson finally agreed to let me contact Mike in person, with agents present. She arranged for us to meet at a neutral location, a diner off Route 1, with undercover agents positioned throughout the restaurant. Mike arrived 15 minutes late, looking like he hadn't slept. His eyes were red, his shirt wrinkled. He slid into the booth across from me without saying hello. They showed me the documents, I said quietly. The classified papers. Agent Carson got them approved, so I could prove to you this was real. I pushed the folder across the table. Mike opened it slowly, started reading. I watched his face drain of color as he went through page after page. Official FBI letterhead. Case numbers. My signature on cooperation agreements. Details of the syndicate's operations. Oh God, he whispered. Oh God, Deanna, what did I do? You need to tell them everything, I said. There was someone who contacted you, right? Someone who told you about the account? Mike's hands were shaking. His name was David Chen. At least, that's what he said his name was. He reached out to me about 5 weeks ago on this app called Signal X. Said he was a financial advisor who'd noticed some irregularities in family financial networks. Said he'd identified that you had money sitting unused, and that as family, I had legal rights to rebalance family assets. Mike, I said gently, that doesn't make any sense. You had to know that wasn't legitimate. His face crumpled. I was desperate, Di. We were 60 days from losing the house. Jennifer's parents were threatening to take the kids, said we were providing an unstable environment. I had contractors threatening to put liens on my business. I wasn't thinking straight. What else did David tell you to do? He said I needed to transfer the money quickly, in multiple transactions to protect it from potential tax issues. He set up the accounts for me. Told me to buy cryptocurrency as an investment hedge. Sent me to a tech vendor in Edison to buy specialized equipment. Said it was for business growth. What kind of equipment? Mike pulled out his phone, scrolled through his purchases. High-end servers, networking equipment, software packages I didn't understand. David said it would help me expand into commercial construction jobs, manage projects more efficiently. I looked at the list and my heart sank. Every item on there was the type of equipment used in large-scale cyber operations. Mike, did you question any of this? He looked away. I did at first, but David seemed so professional, so knowledgeable. And then he showed me screenshots of your account, showed me the balance. $3.4 million. And I thought, why does my sister have this much money and wouldn't give me $50,000 when I needed it? Because it wasn't my money, I said. It never was. I know that now. Mike put his head in his hands. What have I done to our family? His phone rang. He looked at the screen, went pale. It's Jennifer, he answered, putting it on speaker. Jen? Mike, get home now. There are FBI agents at our house. They have a warrant. They're going through everything. The computers, the files, everything. The neighbors are all outside watching. Mrs. Patterson is recording it on her phone. Mike, the kids are so scared. In the background, I could hear shouting, doors slamming, a child crying. I'll be right there, Mike said, already sliding out of the booth. Wait, I said. Agent Carson needs to brief you first. But he was already running for the door. I followed, agents moving with us. We all ended up in a convoy heading to Mike's house in Lakewood. The scene when we arrived was chaos. 2 FBI vehicles were parked in the driveway. Agents were carrying out boxes of evidence. Neighbors lined the sidewalk, phones out, recording everything. My parents' car was parked crookedly at the curb. Inside, Jennifer sat on the couch with both kids clinging to her, all of them crying. My mother stood nearby, face red with fury. My father paced the living room. Amy stood by the window with her husband Craig, both looking shell-shocked. Agent Carson was directing the search, clipboard in hand, completely professional and utterly unmoved by the emotional devastation around her. Mom saw me and her expression turned vicious. You did this. You brought this nightmare to our family. Mrs. Harper, Carson said without looking up, your daughter is a cooperating witness in a federal investigation. She's done nothing wrong. Then why is my son being treated like a criminal? Mom demanded. Because the evidence suggests he may be one, Carson said calmly. She turned to Mike. Mr. Harper, we found several concerning items on your computer. Searches for how to access someone else's bank account. Communications with multiple suspicious contacts. Plans to move money offshore. Downloaded software commonly used for financial fraud. That's not what it looks like, Mike protested. David Chen told me to download those things. He said they were for legal asset protection. David Chen doesn't exist, Rodriguez said. Entering from the back of the house with another box of evidence, it's a fake identity. The phone number routes through multiple proxies. We're trying to trace it, but whoever set it up knew what they were doing. Jennifer's mother burst through the front door then, not bothering to knock. She took one look at the scene and turned to Jennifer. Get the children. You're coming home with me, now. Mom, Jennifer started. No, you are not staying in this house while the FBI tears it apart. While your husband is investigated for federal crimes, Jennifer's mother was already pulling the kids toward the door. My lawyer is filing for emergency custody first thing tomorrow morning. You and Mike have put these children in danger. You can't do that, Mike said desperately. Watch me, Jennifer's mother snapped. And if you try to stop me, I'll add kidnapping to the list of crimes you're apparently committing. She left with Jennifer and the kids. The door slammed behind them. Mike stood in the middle of his living room, looking lost. My mother turned to me. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed Mike's life. Torn this family apart. I didn't do anything, I said, but my voice came out weak, unconvincing even to my own ears. You reported some crime at your work, Dad said. You got involved with the FBI. You let them use you. And now look what's happened. Amy's husband, Craig, spoke up for the first time. The video I took is already getting shared online. I posted it to our community Facebook group. People need to know the FBI is harassing innocent families. You posted it? I stared at him. Craig, you just made everything worse. He shrugged. Freedom of information. People have a right to know when the government oversteps. Agent Rodriguez pulled Carson aside. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but Carson's expression darkened. She walked over to me. "Miss Harper, we need to talk." Outside. We went out to the front yard. Neighbors were still watching, still recording. Rodriguez pulled up something on her tablet, showed it to me. "Surveillance footage from your apartment building. The man in the sedan who was watching you on Monday? He followed Mike to his business office yesterday morning. We have him on camera." Another video. The same car, parked outside an elementary school. "That's the kid's school," I said. "When was this?" "This morning, 8:15, right when school started." "Oh my God." Rodriguez swiped to another image. Text message on Mike's phone. We retrieved it during the search. The message was simple, chilling. "Your brother made a mistake. 3.2 million is still missing. We want it back. You have 72 hours to arrange transfer, or your family pays the price. We know where the children go to school." I looked back at the house. Through the window, I could see Mike arguing with my father, my mother crying, Amy recording something on her phone. Mike's phone buzzed. He looked at it, face going white. He showed it to Carson. Same message. Jennifer screamed from her mother's car, collapsing. Her mother tried to hold her up. The kids started crying again, confused and terrified. Within minutes, agents swarmed the location. Carson was on her radio, calling for additional units, arranging protective details. She turned to me and Mike. "This isn't just a federal investigation anymore. Your entire family is in active danger from one of the most ruthless cybercrime organizations in the world. They think Mike still has access to the money. They think you both know where it is. And they will hurt your family to get it back." "What do we do?" Mike asked, his voice breaking. Carson looked at both of us. "Right now, we protect your family. And we figure out how to stop these people before they make good on their threat. But I need both of you to understand something. The people who sent that message, they don't make empty threats. 72 hours isn't a negotiation timeline. It's a deadline. I didn't sleep for 72 hours straight. The FBI moved Mike's family to a protective custody facility in Atlantic City. Jennifer's parents fought it, threatened legal action, but eventually agreed when agents showed them surveillance footage of the man following the kids' school bus. My parents refused protection. They didn't believe the threat was real. Thought the FBI was exaggerating to justify their investigation. They went back to their house in Hackensack, installed extra locks, told everyone they could handle themselves. On Saturday morning, Agent Carson called me to the FBI field office in Newark. I'd been staying in a different safe house. Not allowed to contact anyone, not allowed to use my own phone. They gave me a temporary device that only called approved numbers. The office was busy even for a weekend, agents moving between conference rooms, phones ringing constantly. Carson led me to a small room with a table, 2 chairs, and a one-way mirror. She set down a thick folder. "Miss Harper, we've completed forensics on all the evidence from your brother's home and business. And the evidence clears you completely. Digital forensics prove you never communicated with your brother about the account. You never gave him access codes, never discussed the FBI operation with him. Your personal devices show no contact with the syndicate, no suspicious activity whatsoever." Relief flooded through me. "So I can go back to work? Go back to my life?" "Not exactly." Carson opened the folder. "The same evidence that clears you makes your brother look significantly more guilty. It shows he actively circumvented your security protocols. He used sophisticated tools to crack your encrypted files. He followed detailed instructions from the syndicate contact. The paper trail suggests premeditation, planning, coordination with criminal elements. But he was manipulated," I protested. "David Chen, or whoever he was, played on Mike's desperation. The U.S. attorney doesn't see it that way." Carson showed me a document. "They're preparing charges against Mike. Wire fraud, unauthorized access to computer systems, money laundering. If convicted, he's looking at a minimum of 20 years in federal prison." 20 years? Mike's kids would be adults before he got out. Carson leaned forward. "Here's your choice, Miss Harper. We can use the evidence that clears you in court. It absolutely exonerates you of any wrongdoing. You walk away free, return to your career, rebuild your life. What's the catch? If we present that evidence, it condemns your brother. The same data that proves your innocence proves his guilt. You can save yourself or protect your brother, not both. I stared at her. That's not a choice. That's a nightmare. It's the reality of your situation. Carson closed the folder. You have until Monday to decide. The U.S. attorney wants an answer before they file formal charges. She left me alone in the room. I put my head down on the table and tried to think, but I couldn't accept it. Couldn't accept that these were the only two options. So during my supervised computer time later that day, I started digging. The FBI had given me limited access to their systems to verify evidence and review case files, but I was a cybersecurity analyst. I knew systems. I knew how to look deeper. I traced David Chen through the SignalX app, using techniques I'd learned in my work. The account was sophisticated, routed through multiple proxies and encryption layers. But encryption always leaves traces if you know where to look. I followed the digital breadcrumbs, the voice over IP service the phone number connected to, the server routes, the IP addresses. Most were overseas, untraceable. But one, just one, originated from a server farm in New Jersey. I cross-referenced the location. 23 miles from my parents' house, 18 miles from Mike's business, within the local area. Whoever David Chen really was, he wasn't some distant international criminal. He was local. Someone who knew our community, our family, our vulnerabilities. I needed to tell someone, but Agent Carson had left for the day. Rodriguez was in a meeting. I wasn't supposed to leave the building without an escort, but my family was in danger. My brother was facing 20 years in prison, and I'd just found evidence that could change everything. I made a decision I probably shouldn't have made. I told the agent at the desk I needed to visit my parents urgently, that I had new information about the case that required immediate family contact. After some back and forth, they approved a supervised visit. An agent drove me to my parents' house. It was just after 6 in the evening, and I knew they'd be there. Saturday night was always family dinner night. At least it used to be. But when I arrived, there were 3 extra cars in the driveway. I didn't recognize 2 of them. The agent came in with me. The living room was full. My parents, Amy and Craig, and 3 people I didn't know immediately. A middle-aged man in an expensive suit stood when I entered. "Diana," Mom said coldly. "What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to all of you. I found something important." The man in the suit extended his hand. "Richard Stanton. I'm a family attorney here in town. Your parents asked me to help navigate this difficult situation." Something about him made my skin crawl. His smile was too smooth, his manner too polished, but I shook his hand, trying to be polite. "Mr. Stanton has been wonderful," Mom said. "He's helping us understand Mike's legal situation. He's offered to represent Mike pro bono." "That's very generous," I said carefully, "but I really need to discuss something with my family privately." "Anything you can say to your family, you can say in front of me," Richard said, still smiling. "I'm here to help." As he spoke, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out to silence it, but I caught a glimpse of the screen. The notification icon, SignalX app. My blood ran cold. I excused myself to use the bathroom, my hands shaking. Once inside with the door locked, I frantically pulled out the FBI-issued phone, tried to text Agent Rodriguez. But the phone was dead. Battery drained, even though I'd charged it an hour ago. No. I tried to remember Richard Stanton's face, his mannerisms, anything that might help identify him later. I needed to get out of this house, get back to FBI headquarters, tell someone what I'd discovered. But when I returned to the living room, everyone was settled in for a long conversation. Richard was presenting a legal strategy to my parents, explaining how Mike could avoid prison time. "Your son was clearly manipulated," Richard was saying. "Taken advantage of during a vulnerable time. Any good defense attorney could argue that. But the challenge is overcoming the federal evidence. They have a strong case based on the digital forensics." "Can't we fight it?" Dad asked. "We can. But it would be expensive, lengthy, and uncertain." Richard paused for effect. "However, I may have another option." I have connections with the FBI field office through my legal work. I believe I can negotiate a deal. What kind of deal? Amy leaned forward eagerly. If Mike cooperates fully, provides testimony about how he was contacted and manipulated, the FBI might be willing to reduce charges significantly, possibly even drop them in exchange for his help catching the real criminals. That sounds perfect, Mom said. There is one complication, Richard continued. His eyes flicked to me. The FBI seems to believe that Diana may have been involved in setting Mike up. If Mike's defense includes claiming he was entrapped by his own sister, it strengthens his case considerably. That's insane, I said. I wasn't involved. I'm not saying you were, dear, Richard said smoothly. I'm simply explaining the legal strategy that would be most effective for your brother. The agent who'd driven me here stepped forward. Miss Harper, we should go. It's getting late. Actually, Richard said, standing up, I'd like Diana to stay for dinner. We have a lot to discuss as a family. I think it would be healing for everyone. His eyes met mine. There was something in them now, something cold and knowing. He knew that I'd figured it out. And I was trapped in my parents' house with a man who was connected to an international crime syndicate, with my family completely unaware of the danger standing right in front of them. Really, I insist, Richard said, his hand on my shoulder, firm and controlling. Your mother made her famous pot roast. It would mean so much to everyone if you stayed. The agent looked uncertain. I tried to signal with my eyes that something was wrong, but Richard positioned himself between us. I'll make sure she gets back safely, Richard told the agent. I'm heading back into the city anyway. I can drop her at the FBI office. The agent hesitated, then nodded. If you're sure, Miss Harper. I tried to speak, to say no, to ask him to stay. But the words caught in my throat as Richard's grip on my shoulder tightened just slightly. I'm sure, I heard myself say. The agent left. The door closed. And I sat down at my parents' dining room table, Richard Stanton smiling across from me, while my family passed around plates of food and talked about legal strategies with a man who was almost certainly working for the people who wanted to hurt us all. My phone was dead. I was cut off from help. And Richard Stanton now knew that I'd discovered his connection to the syndicate. During dessert, his phone buzzed again. He excused himself to take the call in the other room. I followed quietly, staying in the hallway where he couldn't see me. The sister knows, I heard him say in a low voice. Yes, she just figured it out. I saw it on her face when she noticed the app. We need to move the timeline up. Tonight. A pause. No, I can handle her. She's here now, actually. The family trusts me completely. This is perfect positioning. Another pause. I'll arrange everything. By tomorrow morning, we'll have what we need. The brother will cooperate, the family will do exactly what we tell them, and the FBI will be too late to stop it. He ended the call. I barely made it back to the dining room before he returned, that smooth smile back in place. Diana, he said warmly, your parents would love it if you stayed a bit longer. I have some paperwork I'd like you to look at, just to verify some details about the FBI operation. It would really help Mike's case. His eyes said, You're not leaving this house. My mother, completely oblivious, nodded enthusiastically. Please stay, honey. We've barely seen you through all of this. I looked at my family around the table. None of them understood. None of them saw what I saw. And I had no way to call for help. Of course, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'd be happy to look at the paperwork. Wonderful, Richard said. His smile widened. This is going to be a very productive evening. I sat at my parents' dining room table, watching Richard Stanton spread legal documents across the surface. Mom was clearing dessert plates. Dad was making coffee. Amy and Craig had moved to the living room, scrolling through their phones. None of them had any idea what was really happening. Richard handed me a pen. Just need your signature here, acknowledging you've reviewed the FBI operation details. It's standard procedure for Mike's defense. I looked at the document. It was convincing, looked official. But certain phrases jumped out at me. By signing, I'd be acknowledging that I'd discussed the account with Mike, that I'd given him certain information, that I'd been less than fully cooperative with investigators. This document isn't what you're telling my parents, it is, I said quietly. Richard's smile didn't waver. Of course it is. You're just stressed. Reading too much into standard legal language. I need to use the bathroom again, I said, standing up. His hand shot out, gripped my wrist. Not too firm, not obviously aggressive, but unmistakably controlling. Actually, I think we should finish this first. Your parents are eager to help Mike, and this is a crucial step. Let go of me, I said. Is everything okay? Mom appeared in the doorway, concerned. Fine, Richard said smoothly, releasing my wrist. Diana's just emotional about the situation. Completely understandable. I tried a different approach. You know what, Mr. Stanton? I'd actually like to call Mike before I sign anything. Get his input on this. Great idea, Richard said. His phone was already out. I'll conference him in right now. He dialed, put it on speaker. Mike answered on the second ring, sounding exhausted. Mike, it's Richard Stanton. I have your whole family here. We're working on your legal defense. Richard, what's going on? I need you to tell your sister that this defense strategy is what you want, that you're comfortable with the approach we discussed. I looked at Richard. He was staring at me, and now his eyes weren't friendly at all. They were cold, calculating, threatening. What approach? Mike asked, confused. The one where we established that Diana had knowledge of your actions, Richard said. That she could have stopped you but chose not to. It creates reasonable doubt about intent. Makes you look like someone who was following what they believed was family-approved financial planning. That's not true, I said loudly. Mike, don't listen to him. Diana, Mike said slowly, if this helps my case, if it keeps me out of prison so I can be there for Jennifer and the kids, I have to consider it. Mike, no, this man isn't who he says he is. Who is he then? Mike's voice rose. Another person trying to destroy what's left of our family? I'm facing 20 years, Di. 20 years. I'll do whatever it takes to avoid that. Richard smiled at me. See? Your brother understands. Now, let's get that signature. I stood up fast enough that my chair fell over. I'm not signing anything, and I'm calling Agent Rodriguez right now. With what phone? Richard asked calmly. Yours is dead, remember? I'll use my parents' landline, I said, moving toward the kitchen. Richard got there first, positioned himself between me and the phone. I don't think that's a good idea, not until we finish our discussion. Get out of my way, I said. Amy appeared in the doorway with Craig. What's all the yelling about? Your sister is being unreasonable, Richard said, refusing to help her own brother. Because he's not really trying to help Mike, I said desperately. He's connected to the people who are threatening our family. He's using the Signal X app. He's the local contact for the syndicate. Amy rolled her eyes. Now you're accusing Mike's lawyer of being a criminal? Do you hear yourself? Check his phone, I insisted. Look at his apps. Richard pulled out his phone, held it up. I have nothing to hide. Feel free to look. He'd already deleted the app. The screen showed only standard applications. She's paranoid, Craig said. This whole situation has made her unstable. Richard put his phone away. I think perhaps Diana should rest. She's clearly overwhelmed. I'm calling the FBI, I said, right now. Someone give me their phone. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Richard said quietly. His whole demeanor had changed. The friendly lawyer act was gone. Not until we finish our conversation. Is that a threat? Dad stepped forward, finally sensing something was wrong. Richard reached into his jacket. For one terrifying second, I thought he was reaching for a weapon. Instead, he pulled out another phone. This one I recognize. He showed me the screen. Surveillance photos. My apartment building. Mike's house. Mike's kids at school. The coffee shop where Tracy from my work always got her morning latte. You people have been watching us, I breathed. We've been protecting our investment, Richard corrected. $3.4 million doesn't just disappear without consequences. Mom gasped. You're one of them, the criminals. I prefer to think of myself as a businessman, Richard said. And right now, business requires your daughter to sign these documents, and your son to transfer the remaining funds to accounts I'll provide. The remaining funds are gone, I said. Mike already spent most of it. The FBI has the rest. Richard's expression hardened. That's unfortunate, because my associates are very interested in recovering their losses, and they're not patient people. Call the police, Dad said, moving toward the living room where his cell phone was charging. Richard held up his hand. Before you do that, Mr. Harper, you should know that I have people positioned at several locations important to your family. Mike's protective custody facility in Atlantic City. Your daughter Amy's house in Parsippany, even this address. You're bluffing, Craig said, but his voice shook. Am I? Richard tapped his phone. One message from me, and things get very uncomfortable for your family very quickly. What do you want? I asked. Simple. Mike transfers whatever funds he can access back to accounts I control. You sign a statement taking responsibility for introducing Mike to my business associates. And everyone walks away from this without anyone getting hurt. I'll go to prison if I sign that, I said. Probably, Richard agreed. But your family will be safe. Your brother's children will grow up with their father. Your sister won't have to worry about her house mysteriously catching fire. Your parents can live out their retirement in peace. It's a fair trade, really. The room was silent except for Mom's quiet crying. You've been planning this for years, haven't you? I said. You weren't just positioning Mike. You've been embedding yourself in this entire community, gathering information, identifying vulnerable families. 8 years, Richard confirmed almost proudly. I moved here specifically to create this network. I'm very good at what I do, Diana. I identify people who need help, who are desperate, who will bend rules when pushed hard enough. Your brother was perfect. Proud, struggling, resentful of his more successful sister. So easy to manipulate. You're disgusting, Amy whispered. I'm practical, Richard corrected. Now, we can do this the easy way, or things can get messy. Your choice. His second phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, frowned. Then his expression shifted to concern. Then to fear. What's wrong? I asked. Shut up, he snapped. He was typing frantically. A car pulled up outside. Then another. Through the window, I could see vehicles blocking the driveway, the street, dark SUVs with tinted windows. What's happening? Dad moved to look outside. Stay away from the window, Richard barked. His smooth composure was completely gone now. He looked at me. What did you do? I didn't do anything, I said truthfully. Richard's phone rang. He answered, his face going pale as he listened. When he spoke, his voice was tight with barely controlled panic. I can fix this. Give me 10 minutes. I can make this right. He ended the call, looked at all of us. New plan. Everyone into the basement. Now. We're not going anywhere with you, Dad said. Richard reached into his jacket again. This time, he did pull out a weapon. A small handgun. Black and efficient looking. Mom screamed. Amy grabbed Craig's arm. I said now, Richard repeated. Before anyone could move, the windows exploded inward. Not from bullets, but from flashbang devices. The room filled with smoke and deafening noise. I hit the floor, covering my head. When I looked up, FBI agents were pouring through every entrance. Tactical teams, full gear, weapons drawn. Someone tackled Richard, pinned him to the ground. The gun skittered across the floor. Clear, someone shouted. Secure. Agent Carson appeared through the smoke, helping me to my feet. You okay? How did you know? I asked. Your phone wasn't dead, Miss Harper. We have GPS tracking on all our issued devices. When it stopped moving and the battery was still showing full charge on our end, we knew someone had tampered with it. When you stopped responding to our check-in messages, we mobilized. Other agents were helping my family up, checking them for injuries. Rodriguez appeared with Richard in handcuffs, his smooth lawyer persona completely shattered. Richard Stanton, you're under arrest for conspiracy, extortion, money laundering, and about 15 other charges I'm going to enjoy reading to you, Carson said. This isn't over, Richard snarled at me. You have no idea how deep this goes. I'm one node in a massive network. You think catching me stops anything? Actually, Carson said, we caught 4 of your associates about 20 minutes ago. The ones you had positioned at various family locations. Turns out, when you're running a long-term infiltration operation, you create a lot of digital evidence. Your encrypted communications weren't as encrypted as you thought. More agents entered, securing the scene. My mother was sobbing in Dad's arms. Amy and Craig stood in shock, covered in drywall dust. Agent Rodriguez approached me. "We need you to come with us, Miss Harper. We have a lot to debrief." "What about my family?" I asked. "They'll be fine. We're moving them to a secure location tonight, but the immediate threat is neutralized." As they led Richard out in handcuffs, he looked back at me. "You think you won?" 3.2 million is still out there. The syndicate's leadership is still operational. You just made yourself an even bigger target. Then the door closed behind him, and he was gone. But his words echoed in my mind. Because he was right about one thing. We'd stopped him, stopped his local operation. But the bigger organization, the international syndicate, they were still out there. And now they knew exactly who had disrupted their plans. Carson must have seen something in my expression. "Don't worry about them," she said. "We're not done yet. This was just the beginning." But that's exactly what worried me. If this was just the beginning, what came next? The FBI moved my entire family to a secure hotel outside Princeton that night. Mom and Dad in one room, Amy and Craig in another, agents stationed in the hallway. I spent the night in an interrogation room at the Newark field office, going over every detail of the evening's events. By Sunday morning, I was exhausted, running on coffee and adrenaline. Agent Carson spread files across the conference table, showing me what they'd learned from Richard Stanton's phones and computers. "He wasn't lying about the scale of this operation," she said. "We found evidence of 63 families in your area alone that he'd been cultivating. Most of them don't even know they're compromised yet." "What happens to them?" I asked. "We'll have to contact each one, assess the damage." "But Diana, that's not our immediate problem." "What is?" Carson pulled up a financial tracking document. "The money your brother transferred. We thought most of it was gone, scattered across legitimate purchases and contractors. But Richard was smart. He set up the vendor accounts, the contractor payments, the equipment purchases. All of it went to companies he controlled or had connections to. So the money isn't really gone? $2.8 million is sitting in legal trust accounts set up under Richard's legitimate lawyer credentials, protected by attorney-client privilege. We can't just seize it without jumping through months of legal hoops, and in the meantime, the syndicate knows it's there." My phone, the one Carson had returned to me that morning, started buzzing. "Blocked number." Against my better judgment, I answered. "Miss Harper," a computerized voice said. "You have caused significant disruption to our operations. We are willing to negotiate a resolution." I put it on speaker so Carson could hear. "Who is this?" "Someone who would very much like to avoid further complications. Your brother transferred funds that belong to us. We want them returned. In exchange, we'll forget about your family's involvement in recent events." "You mean the involvement you created by manipulating my brother?" I shot back. "Details are irrelevant. We want the money. You have 72 hours to arrange transfer of $2.8 million to accounts we'll specify. Fail to comply, and consequences will be severe." "We don't have access to that money," I said. "It's locked in legal accounts." "Then you'll find a way to unlock them." "You're a clever woman, Miss Harper. I'm sure you'll figure something out." The call ended. Carson was already on her phone, getting agents to trace the call. But we both knew it would lead nowhere. The next 2 days were a nightmare of legal maneuvering and escalating threats. The syndicate started making their presence felt. Mike's business office was broken into, vandalized. Jennifer's parents' house was spray-painted with threatening messages. Someone slashed the tires on Amy's car. By Tuesday morning, my family was falling apart under the pressure. The FBI held a meeting at the Princeton Hotel with everyone present. Mike was brought in from his protective facility. Jennifer came with the kids, who looked tired and scared. We all crowded into a conference room while Carson and Rodriguez presented the situation. "We're doing everything we can," Carson said. "But we need you to understand the reality. The syndicate isn't going away. They want their money back, and they're willing to be patient." "How patient?" Dad asked. "As patient as they need to be. These organizations operate on long timelines. They'll wait months, even years, for the right opportunity. So we're supposed to just live in fear forever? Jennifer's voice rose. My children can't go back to school. We can't go home. My parents are being targeted because of this. We'll maintain protective details as long as necessary, Rodriguez said. Amy's husband Craig stood up. I have a job, a life. I can't just hide indefinitely. He looked at me. This is your fault, Diana. You should have never gotten involved with the FBI in the first place. I reported a crime, I said. That's what you're supposed to do. And look where it got us, Mom said bitterly. Maybe if you just minded your own business, none of this would have happened. Mrs. Harper, Carson started. No, Mom cut her off. My son is facing federal charges. My grandchildren are in hiding. My entire family is being threatened by criminals. And it all traces back to Diana and her need to be the hero. That's not fair, Mike said quietly. Everyone looked at him. Di didn't do anything wrong, Mike continued. I did. I stole money from an account I had no right to access. I let myself be manipulated because I was too proud to admit I'd failed. I brought this on our family, not Diana. You were desperate, Jennifer said. Anyone would have done the same thing in your position. No, Mike said. No, they wouldn't have. And I need to take responsibility for that. Very touching, Craig said sarcastically. But taking responsibility doesn't solve our problem. We're still stuck in protective custody while the FBI figures out how to catch these people. Agent Carson stood. We're working several angles. Richard Stanton is cooperating to some degree, giving us information about the syndicate structure. We've arrested 4 of his local contacts. We're tracing financial networks across multiple countries. But you haven't caught the leadership, I said. Not yet, Carson admitted. They're careful, layered, protected by multiple jurisdictions. So what do we do? Amy asked. Just wait and hope they eventually give up? Rodriguez spoke up. There may be another option. We've been authorized to propose a deal. Everyone leaned forward. If Mike fully cooperates, Rodriguez continued, testifies about how he was recruited and manipulated, provides access to all his communications and accounts, we can recommend reduced charges. Probation instead of prison time. What's the catch? Mike asked. The catch is that Diana would need to be willing to continue as an active cooperating witness, stay involved in the investigation, potentially help us set up another sting operation, use herself as bait to draw out syndicate leadership. Absolutely not, Dad said immediately. You're not using my daughter as bait. It would be voluntary, Carson said, and we'd provide full protection. But yes, there would be risks. How much risk? Mom asked. Her voice small and frightened now. Carson didn't sugarcoat it. Significant risk. These people have already demonstrated they're willing to hurt families to achieve their goals. I looked at Mike, at Jennifer, at their terrified kids, at my parents, aged 10 years in the past 2 weeks, at Amy and Craig, their marriage strained to breaking. I'll do it, I heard myself say. No, Mike started. It's the only way out of this, I said. The only way any of us get our lives back. The meeting broke up with no final decisions made. Carson said she needed to run the operation plan past her superiors, get authorization, set up protocols. That night I couldn't sleep. I paced my hotel room, watching news on my phone. The story had gone national now. Federal investigation into cybercrime syndicate. Local lawyer arrested for money laundering. Family caught in FBI sting operation. Someone had leaked my name. It was everywhere online now. Diana Harper, the woman at the center of the case. Comment sections were brutal. Half the people called me a hero. The other half called me an idiot who'd destroyed her family's life. Tracy from my former job called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. I saw the news, she said. I just wanted you to know. A bunch of us at work, we know you didn't do anything wrong. We're supporting you. Thanks, Trace, I said, my voice thick with emotion. But I have to tell you something. She paused. They fired you. Official termination came through this morning. Said you violated company policy by not disclosing the FBI investigation. I closed my eyes. Of course they did. I'm sorry, Tracy said. After we hung up, I sat on the hotel bed and let myself cry. Not just for the job, but for everything. For the family I'd lost even though they were still alive. For the trust that had been shattered. For the innocence of thinking that doing the right thing would lead to good outcomes. My phone buzzed. Text from Agent Rodriguez, check your email, urgent. I opened my email. Message from an encrypted address. The subject line was just my name. I clicked it open. Miss Harper, we've been watching your situation with interest. We admire your resilience. However, you should know that your brother Mike has been less than truthful about certain aspects of his involvement. Ask him about the second account. Ask him about the $400,000 he didn't report. Ask him about his meeting in Philadelphia 2 months ago. Some secrets are more dangerous than others. You might want to question who in your family you can really trust before you risk your life for them. The email address was already bouncing when I tried to reply. I called Rodriguez immediately. She answered on the first ring. I just got a threatening email, I said, telling me Mike is hiding something. We got one too, she said grimly. Different content, but same source. They're trying to create divisions in your family, make you distrust each other. Is it true, I asked, about the second account? Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. We did find some irregularities in Mike's financial disclosures. We were going to bring it up tomorrow. What kind of irregularities? A second transfer. $400,000. Different bank, different account, made the same day as the main transfer but to a separate location. Mike didn't mention it in any of his statements. Where is the money now? We don't know. The account was closed within 48 hours. Money withdrawn in cash, no trace of where it went. I felt sick. Mike had been lying about how much he'd taken, about what he'd done with it, about his level of involvement. Deanna, Rodriguez said gently, I know this is hard, but you need to consider the possibility that your brother was more involved with the syndicate than he's admitted. That maybe he wasn't as innocent as he's claimed. I wanted to argue, to defend Mike, to insist he was still the brother I'd grown up with. But I couldn't, because a small, terrible part of me was starting to wonder if I'd ever really known him at all. The next morning, they brought Mike in for questioning about the second account. I watched through the one-way mirror as he sat across from Carson and Rodriguez, his lawyer beside him. Mike, Carson said calmly, we need to talk about the $400,000. Mike's face went white. I was going to tell you about that. When? Rodriguez asked. After we found it ourselves? It was different, Mike said. David Chen, or whoever he was, he told me to set up a separate account for emergency funds. Said it was important to have liquid assets in case the FBI froze everything. And you just withdrew it all in cash? Carson pressed. I got scared, Mike said. When I realized what I'd done, how serious this was, I panicked. I thought if I had cash hidden, maybe I could pay back the contractors if everything went south. Maybe I could fix things. Where's the money now? Rodriguez asked. Mike looked down. It's gone. $400,000 doesn't just disappear, Carson said. Mike's lawyer leaned over, whispered something to him. Mike shook his head. Then, finally, he spoke. I gave it to Richard Stanton. He said he could make the FBI investigation go away if I paid him. I was desperate. I believed him. When did you give it to him? Carson asked. 3 weeks ago, before the family dinner, before everything exploded. He told me it was a retainer for legal services, but it was really payment to make problems disappear. I watched my brother through the glass, and I didn't recognize him. The Mike I knew would never have stolen money, lied to family, made secret deals with criminals, but maybe I'd been wrong about who Mike really was all along. The interrogation continued for another 2 hours. By the end, it was clear that Mike had been far more involved, far more deceptive, than he'd initially admitted. He'd made multiple secret transfers, met with Richard several times without telling anyone, and had been considering the whole plan for months before actually executing it. Carson came out of the interrogation room and found me in the observation area. I'm sorry, Diana, she said. For what? For what you just learned about your brother. I know that can't be easy. I looked back through the glass at Mike, head in his hands, lawyer speaking urgently to him. Is he going to prison? I asked. After this? Carson nodded. Almost certainly. The U.S. attorney isn't going to offer any deals now. Not with this level of deception. And my family? Will blame you, probably. It's easier than accepting what Mike did. She was right. When the family meeting happened that afternoon to inform everyone of the new developments, my parents refused to believe it. Dad insisted the FBI had coerced Mike into a false confession. Mom said Mike was confused, traumatized, didn't understand what he was saying. Amy accused the FBI of twisting Mike's words. Only Jennifer seemed to accept the truth, and it broke her. She sat in the corner of the conference room, tears streaming silently down her face, while her children played with toys on the floor, oblivious to their world crumbling. I tried to approach her, to offer comfort, but she held up a hand. Don't. Just don't. I'm sorry, I said anyway. So am I, Jennifer whispered. Sorry I ever met your brother. Sorry I had children with him. Sorry I didn't see who he really was before it was too late. That evening, I sat alone in my hotel room and faced the reality of my situation. My brother was going to prison. My family blamed me. I'd lost my job. My reputation was destroyed. The syndicate was still out there, still threatening everyone I loved. And the FBI wanted me to risk my life to help catch them. My phone rang. Agent Carson. We have a decision from headquarters, she said. If you're still willing to proceed, we're authorized to move forward with the operation, using you as bait to draw out syndicate leadership. I looked out the window at the parking lot, at the ordinary people going about their ordinary lives. Lives I'd never have again. What would it involve? I asked. Carson explained the plan. It was complex, dangerous, and had no guarantee of success. But it was the only option that gave my family a chance at eventual normal life. When do we start? I asked. Tomorrow, Carson said. Are you sure you want to do this? I thought about Mike's lies, my parents' blame, my shattered career, the threats hanging over everyone I loved. I'm sure, I said, because at this point I had nothing left to lose. I spent the next 7 days doing something the FBI hadn't anticipated. Instead of immediately jumping into their operation, I requested access to all the evidence, every file, every piece of data they'd collected on Richard Stanton and the syndicate's operations. Carson was skeptical. What are you looking for? Something everyone missed, I said. There has to be a pattern, a vulnerability, something we can exploit beyond just using me as bait. They gave me a secure workspace at the Newark field office and access to their database. I went through everything. Richard's encrypted communications, his financial transactions, his connections to the 63 families he'd been cultivating. On the 4th day, I found it. In the forensic data from Mike's computer, buried in deleted files that had been partially recovered, there was a conversation thread that Richard thought he'd completely erased. Communications that showed something crucial. The legal trust accounts holding Mike's transferred money, they weren't just holding Mike's money. Richard had been funneling syndicate money through those same accounts for years. Money laundering hidden behind legitimate lawyer-client transactions. I pulled up the financial tracking software I'd used in my old cybersecurity job and started building a map. Every transaction, every transfer, every movement of funds through Richard's accounts over the past 3 years. The pattern emerged slowly at first. Then, all at once. Richard hadn't just stolen $3.4 million from Mike's transfer. He'd been moving $3.7 million in additional syndicate funds through the same accounts, disguised as legal fees and settlements. If we could prove those accounts were part of a criminal enterprise, attorney-client privilege would shatter, the accounts could be seized, the money recovered. And more importantly, the financial trails would lead directly to syndicate leadership. I called Carson into my workspace at 2 in the morning. She looked exhausted, probably hadn't slept much either. I found it, I said, the way to break this open. I showed her everything. The transaction patterns, the hidden communications, the evidence that Richard's legal accounts were actually money laundering operations. Carson studied my analysis, her expression growing more focused with each screen. This is good, she said finally. This is really good, but it's not enough for a warrant. We need more direct evidence linking these accounts to syndicate operations. I can get that, I said. How? I'll testify. As an expert witness. I can trace every transaction, explain the technical details, show how the patterns prove criminal enterprise. My cybersecurity credentials, combined with my first-hand knowledge of the case, that's your direct evidence. Carson shook her head. Their defense attorneys will destroy you on cross-examination. They'll use your connection to Mike, your emotional investment, the coerced confession video. They'll make you look biased, unreliable, desperate to clear your own name. Let them try, I said. I know this data, I can defend it, and more importantly, I can explain it in a way that a judge will understand. Carson considered this. It's risky. If you testify and they discredit you, we lose everything. The case collapses. If I don't testify, my family stays in danger forever, I countered. This is the play. The only one that ends this. She finally nodded. I'll run it up the chain. But, Diana, you need to understand. If you do this, if you take the stand, you're exposing yourself completely, not just to legal cross-examination, but to the syndicate. They'll see you as an active threat, not just a witness. The danger level increases exponentially. I'm already a threat, I said. Might as well be effective. The federal hearing was scheduled for the following Monday. Carson and Rodriguez spent the weekend preparing me, running through potential questions, hardening my testimony against attack. Mike requested to see me the day before the hearing. He was being held at a federal facility in Camden, awaiting formal sentencing. When they brought him into the visiting room, he looked smaller somehow, diminished. I'm sorry, he said immediately. For everything. For lying. For the second account, for all of it. I know, I said. Jennifer's divorcing me. Her parents got emergency custody of the kids. I'm going to lose everything. You already lost everything, Mike. The question is whether you're going to help me save what's left for everyone else. He looked up at me. What do you need? The recording you made of Marcus/David. The one where he explained the whole syndicate operation. I need you to testify about when you made it, why you made it, how it connects to Richard Stanton. They said, if I cooperate more, it might reduce my sentence, Mike said. This isn't about your sentence, I said. This is about making sure Mom and Dad can go home. Making sure Amy and Craig can have their lives back. Making sure your kids grow up without looking over their shoulders. Mike was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay. I'll testify. I'll tell them everything. The courtroom was packed on Monday morning. Federal judge, prosecution team, Richard Stanton's expensive defense attorneys funded by syndicate money, journalists, observers. My entire family sat in the gallery, my parents still barely speaking to me. The prosecution presented their case for seizing Richard's accounts. Carson laid out the evidence methodically, building the argument that the accounts were part of a criminal enterprise. Then it was my turn. I took the stand and was sworn in. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Assistant U.S. Attorney Melissa Chen, walked me through my credentials, my role in the case, my analysis of the financial data. Ms. Harper, she said, can you explain to the court how you determined that these legal trust accounts were being used for money laundering? I pulled up the first exhibit on the courtroom display. Over 3 years, I began, these accounts showed a pattern of deposits and withdrawals that don't match typical legal fee structures. The amounts are too consistent, the timing too regular, the sources too varied. When you map the transaction patterns, they align exactly with known money laundering techniques. I spent 40 minutes walking the judge through my analysis. Every chart, every graph, every data point that proved Richard Stanton had been running a money laundering operation under cover of his law practice. Then Richard's defense attorney stood for cross-examination. His name was Marcus Wheeler, and his suit probably cost more than my car. Miss Harper, he began smoothly, isn't it true that you have a personal stake in this case? That your own brother is facing federal charges? Yes, I said. And isn't it true that if these accounts are seized, it might somehow benefit your brother's legal situation? No, I said firmly. My brother's legal situation is determined by his actions, not by account seizures. Wheeler smiled. Let's talk about your qualifications. You're a cybersecurity analyst, correct? Not a forensic accountant, not a financial crimes investigator, not a lawyer. That's correct, I said. But financial transaction analysis is part of cybersecurity. I've spent 5 years tracking financial patterns for fraud detection. For your previous employer, Wheeler said, who terminated you? Why were you fired, Miss Harper? Objection, Carson stood. Relevance. Goes to credibility, Wheeler argued. Overruled, the judge said. Answer the question, Miss Harper. I was terminated because I didn't disclose the FBI investigation to my employer, I said. It was a violation of company policy, but I was under a federal non-disclosure agreement at the time. Wheeler pulled up a video on his tablet, the coerced confession from my parents' house. Let's watch something, shall we? The judge watched the video. Me, under duress, saying I'd orchestrated everything, that Mike was innocent. That confession was obtained under threat, I said when it finished. Richard Stanton was holding my family hostage. Or, Wheeler suggested, it was the truth. And now you're backtracking because you realize the consequences. I held his gaze. If you truly believe that confession was legitimate, then you have to believe I'm a criminal mastermind who orchestrated a complex federal crime. If that's true, then my financial analysis is even more credible, because I'd have intimate knowledge of how money laundering operations work. Wheeler's smile faltered slightly. I continued, but the actual truth is simpler. I reported a crime. I cooperated with investigators. I was manipulated and threatened by your client. And now I'm providing expert analysis that proves your client has been operating a money laundering scheme for years. The data doesn't lie, Mr. Wheeler. And no amount of attacking my character changes what the transaction patterns prove. The cross-examination continued for another hour, but Wheeler couldn't shake my testimony. The data was too solid, the patterns too clear. Then Mike took the stand. He was nervous, stammering at first. But when he pulled out his phone and played the recording of Marcus/David explaining the syndicate operation, the courtroom went silent. The voice on the recording was clear. Richard Stanton is the regional coordinator. He's been building the network for 8 years, identifying vulnerable targets, setting up the infrastructure. You're perfect, Mike. Desperate, proud, resentful of family success. Exactly the profile we look for. Mike testified about every interaction with Richard. Every instruction he'd received, every manipulation. He admitted his own guilt freely, took full responsibility, but he also provided detailed evidence of how Richard's operation worked. When Rodriguez took the stand, she presented digital forensics connecting Richard to the syndicate. Communications, financial transfers, encrypted messages, spanning years. 8 years of careful embedding in the community, building trust, gathering information on 63 families. Then, the bombshell. Rodriguez revealed that 3 syndicate members had accepted plea deals and agreed to testify. They were waiting outside the courtroom. The first was Marcus Brennan, the tech vendor Mike had recognized from high school. He explained the equipment sales, the money laundering protocols, Richard's role as regional coordinator. The second was a woman named Patricia Donnelly, who'd been running a parallel operation in Pennsylvania. She detailed how the syndicate's leadership structure worked, how Richard reported to international coordinators, how the money flowed. The third was someone I didn't expect. Jennifer's divorce attorney, a man named Todd Richardson. He explained how the syndicate infiltrated legal services, family courts, real estate transactions, how they'd been positioning to take custody of Mike's children, to use them as leverage for future operations. The defense tried to object, to discredit, to delay, but the evidence was overwhelming. After 4 days of testimony, the judge made his ruling. Based on the evidence presented, it is clear that the legal trust accounts in question were not being used for legitimate legal purposes, but rather as vehicles for money laundering and other criminal activities. Attorney-client privilege does not extend to criminal enterprises. The accounts are hereby ordered seized. Additionally, I'm ordering a full investigation into Richard Stanton's entire legal practice and associated financial transactions. Richard stood, face red with fury. "This isn't over," he shouted. "The syndicate has resources you can't imagine. Connections at every level. You think you've won, but you've just made it worse for everyone." Bailiffs moved to restrain him as he continued shouting threats. The judge ordered him removed from the courtroom. Carson leaned over to me. "We got him." But it wasn't truly over yet. The seized accounts gave investigators access to financial records that traced the syndicate's operations across 7 countries. Over the next 2 months, coordinated raids happened in 4 continents. 17 syndicate members were arrested, including 2 leaders who'd been operating uncaught for over a decade. The money from Richard's accounts was partially returned to victims, partially used to fund the ongoing investigation. Mike's portion, the original $3.4 million, was recovered and returned to FBI control. Mike received his sentence 5 months after the hearing. 7 years in federal prison, eligible for parole after 5. It was harsh, but significantly less than the 20 years he'd originally faced. His cooperation, combined with his testimony, had made the difference. Jennifer did divorce him, but she allowed supervised visitation with the kids once Mike was transferred to a minimum security facility. She moved back to her parents' house in Cherry Hill, started rebuilding her life. The FBI formally cleared me of any wrongdoing and issued a public statement acknowledging my cooperation and expert assistance. My former employer called, offered me my job back with a promotion and a raise. I declined. Instead, I accepted a position as a cybersecurity consultant for the FBI, with a salary that finally matched my skills. The real victory came 8 months after the trial. Carson called me on a Tuesday morning, excitement clear in her voice. "We got the last one," she said. "The syndicate's international coordinator. Your financial analysis, the trails you helped us map, they led directly to him. He's been operating out of Luxembourg for 12 years. Never thought we'd catch him." "Is it really over?" I asked. Carson was quiet for a moment. "The syndicate is broken. The leadership is in custody or scattered. The networks Richard and others built are dismantled. You and your family can go home, Diana. Really home. No more protection details, no more looking over shoulders. It's over." I cried then, not from sadness, but from relief so profound it hurt. My family didn't immediately forgive me. That took time. But slowly, grudgingly, they came to understand what I'd done and why. Dad was first, showing up at my new apartment in Hoboken with pizza and an apology. Mom followed a few weeks later, bringing Amy with her. "We'll never be the same family we were," Mom said. "But maybe we can be something different, something honest." The final reconciliation happened at Thanksgiving, nearly a year after everything started. We gathered at my parents' house, the one that had been a crime scene, that had been violated by Richard Stanton's presence. But it was home again now, reclaimed and safe. Mike called from prison. We set up a video chat so he could see everyone. He looked healthier than he had in months, attending classes, working in the prison workshop, finally accepting responsibility for his choices. "I'm proud of you, sis," he said. "You never gave up. Not on catching the bad guys. Not on saving the family. Not even on me. Someone has to be the stubborn one," I said, smiling. After dinner, Dad stood and raised his glass. "To Diana," he said. "To the daughter who saved us all, even when we didn't deserve it." We drank, and for the first time in a year, I felt at peace. That night, sitting on my parents' porch with a cup of coffee, I thought about everything I'd learned. About how family bonds are tested most severely when trust is broken, but real love survives the testing. About how truth requires courage, especially when everyone doubts you. About how sometimes saving the people you love means standing alone against their anger, their fear, their mistakes. The hardest victories aren't against external enemies, I realized. They're against the misunderstandings and pain within the people closest to us. Money, careers, reputations, those can all be rebuilt. But family requires something more precious. Forgiveness, accountability, and the courage to fight for each other even when it costs everything. I would do it all again, every painful moment, because that's what love demands. Not perfection, but perseverance. Not agreement, but commitment. The account my brother emptied wasn't just money. It was a test of who we all were and who we could choose to become. We chose each other, eventually. And that was worth more than $3.4 million ever could be. As I sat there in the November cold, watching my family through the window, laughing and talking, I understood something fundamental. The syndicate had tried to use our weaknesses against us, to divide us through desperation and fear. But in the end, those same pressures had forced us to become stronger, more honest, more connected than we'd ever been. We'd survived, we'd won, not perfectly, not without scars, but together, and that was everything. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between protecting someone you love and doing what you knew was right, even when it meant standing alone? Have you ever been blamed for trying to help? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about resilience, family, and fighting back against impossible odds. And share this with someone who needs to hear that sometimes the hardest battles are worth fighting. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that even when everything falls apart, even when your own family turns against you, the truth is worth fighting for. Stay strong, stay honest, and never stop believing that doing the right thing matters. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.